What's up, everyone? It's Isaac Smolden, the production manager here at my house. Just giving you a couple of announcements before we dive into this episode of Diagnonsense. First of all, just another reminder that this is part 3. It's our last part of this 3-part series with Josh Fryfogle. If you haven't listened to part 1 and part 2, and that's episodes 18 and 19, maybe go back and take a listen to those before listening to this episode. Also, you might notice that this episode is coming out a little bit late. Turns out all of us got crazy sick last week, and my voice was completely shot, so we didn't have what we needed to get the last bits in here and get it out last Wednesday. But it's out now, so we're excited to have you listen to it. Again, I'll put my little disclaimer in there that says that the thoughts and views expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Matsu Youth Housing or its management. And also, I will just let everyone know that because we were a little behind last week with stuff going on just here at the My House building, we are going to have a super packed week of podcast releases for you this week. So make sure you're checking out the channel wherever you're listening to us to be tuned in for all the other shows that are going to be dropping here this week and next week. Without any further ado, let's get into part 3 with Josh.
90% of the time, I have no idea what I'm talking about.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
It's not. It
Gets the people going.
You're now listening to Diagnonsense
Look at all this damage!
with Justin Pendergrass and Kurt Honak.
You are a sad, strange little man.
Then we would just be idiots saying nonsense.
I don't know what to say about Kanye. Didn't he do something where he was? I don't know if he.
Kanye's got problems. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. He
no
does
comment
have
on that
some serious mental. He's
a provocateur.
Bipolar.
He's provocateur.
He is a bipolar personality disorder.
Yep.
And
but
he's
man,
also,
he's made some money off his bipolar.
And everyone
he's
can
made some
tell.
incredible
Everyone
music,
can
too.
tell. You know, I'm putting these in quotations. When he's off of his meds, is what they call it.
Yeah.
So,
quote unquote, like direct. Yeah.
yes, direct quote. They say Kanye's off his meds again in interviews.
And then he'll post something like the other day. He said something that upset what's her face. There's a Jewish actor, and I forget her name, but
He said something anti-Semitic.
yeah, he said something anti-Semitic. So I'm just like watching that,
I
like
watched
looking
him-
at it, like. But
He was on a podcast and he went deeper. Like at first he
Yeah.
said something mildly anti-Semitic on Twitter.
right,
Got banned, I think.
yeah,
But then he went on a podcast and really doubled down.
right.
Like it was rough.
And then J.P. Morgan was like, "Yeah, we're not doing banking with you anymore."
yeah, and that was that's an odd thing in it.
Yeah.
Like here's a bank.
Wait, they said they're not doing banking.
Yeah, they cut him off social credit score. Yeah,
Yep,
he's
they
out
got rid
the
of his
system.
money. They
He's out
said
of the
we're
system.
not going to serve your banking needs anymore. So he had to take. I think he
So-
had 140 million, but he's a billionaire, so
Yeah.
he just moved it to the other bank he banks with.
That's just interesting to me that a bank can now decide based on something that you've said
Outside of
of anything to do with me
Regardless of
banking with
whether
you.
or not what you said is
Right, good or
correct
bad or
right,
wrong.
But yes.
So
Right.
we're now living in this society where you can be removed from anything like social media, whatever. But now my bank can decide whether I'm allowed to store my money there.
Don't
Well,
trust
they-
the banks, Barry Gold. Wake up, people.
That's true. They've always been involved, though.
Oh, sure.
From-
But I
you know
didn't
what
know
I
that
mean.
they had that level of.
Yeah,
I've never heard them doing that. Have they
Look.
done that to other people before? So wait, they didn't take Bill Cosby and tell him that they weren't going to bank with him anymore when he got in trouble for what he did.
Is a bank a private business?
And he did an action, not a statement. So
Is a bank a private business?
sometimes.
I believe that it's a government business.
Well, if
Depends
it's a
on which
private
bank.
business, is it allowed to have the same thing that restaurants do, where we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone? I don't know. I'm just asking questions.
Well,
It's just weird.
I think when we talk about this phenomenon of cancel culture, we need to distinguish between whether or not
the holy trinity: COVID, cancel culture, and corporations.
And Kanye.
The three
And
Cs.
Kanye.
That's
And we
okay.
talked about Kanye.
That's okay.
He's
I
yay
know,
now.
but
He's yay.
sometimes we can. He's yay now. That's true.
It's just okay.
But we should separate the whether or not they have the right to do it and whether or not it is socially normalized to do it. Like we've always like if you're in a small town and there's some crazy guy, the grocery store has always had the right to kick him out of the grocery store, but they didn't. They just kept an eye on him.
Yeah.
Right. They just would hurry him along when he came in because people need food. Right. So culturally, yes, these companies have always had the right to choose who they do business with, but big picture wise, they don't exploit or abuse that right to the point that someone could be ostracized from society. So now with cancel culture, it's gotten to the point where if you say something that they're later going to admit was true, you can be kicked off of every social media platform at once. Like, imagine if every bank came together on the same morning and just happened to kick Kanye out. Now what's Kanye going to do? He's going to go buy a bunch of Bitcoin, right? What else is he going to do?
Right.
So that's the difference is we've reached this point where the power of that is multiplied across the spectrum, and it makes it to where we're creating potentially a second class of citizen, and it gets very dystopian. You can see how this dystopian future could play out, where people draw a line in the sand and say, I'm going to accept that I don't fit into your culture. Well, now you have two cultures, two societies existing in layers on top of each other. And,
and that's going to spark civil war and civil unrest and,
Well, it's precisely why I've always been opposed to illegal immigration, not because I'm opposed to illegal immigrants, but because I'm opposed to corporations taking advantage of people who exist outside of the law. Like, to me, it's just a much more highly developed form of slavery. I grew up in the Southeast, and there's lots of illegal immigrants down there, and I've worked on construction jobs where most of them are illegal immigrants. And I remember getting hired at a construction job in my early 20s, and they had everyone who was a citizen in one room dealing with the union stuff that was required, but not required, but required, But then the majority of the new hires at this job site that had just opened up were Mexican immigrants, and none of them had to be in that room because they can't be union members.
Well, because they're being human trafficked, essentially.
Right. They're being trafficked by corporations. Again, we're back to these corporations. So my opposition to illegal immigration has nothing to do with whether or not they're taking jobs or any of that. My problem is why is this not looked at as slavery?
Well, and that neglects both us nationally and their country of origin because nobody's taking responsibility anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's exploitative of people who are desperate. And these corporations, again, get a pass. For some reason, I remember standing out on that job that time when I'm looking at, it was a huge job. We were building a Johnson & Johnson plant. We had all gotten the job, but we had to travel up to Pennsylvania. And and I'm looking around and I'm like, all of these people are here illegally. We're the minority on this job site. And I remember thinking, well, how is it? I could understand one or two slipping through the cracks, people not noticing, but man, ICE could pull up with 2 buses and still run out of space if they wanted to deport some illegal aliens. Why aren't they?
Well,
and then it occurred to me it's because these corporations and the politicians are colluding.
Right. Exactly.
Those ones aren't affecting anything.
Well,
they're
they
working
want
on
them
over here
illegal.
to do these ones because these ones, they're like, all right, we got to make it look like we're doing this.
People talk about, all the illegal immigrants, they're taking all of our jobs.
Nobody's doing any work.
No one's doing. We have a huge job shortage. What do you mean they're taking all of our jobs? We
It's
can't
a bad
find anyone
argument.
to work. But the problem is that corporations, not all corporations, some of these large corporations that use essentially human traffic people who are here undocumented need that workforce in order to continue functioning. It's almost like if you look how the South's economy pre-Civil War was based entirely on slavery, and they knew if slavery was illegal, their entire economy would collapse. Now, instead of it being a geographical problem, it's a corporation problem. It's an LLC problem where they know if you had people come in and make sure that all of these, you could even say it's not about, our country's full, go back to where you came from. It's if we had, hypothetically, the resources to go around and every single person that wanted to come into the country could come in as a documented individual, no matter the circumstances, and you gave all of them papers, every single corporation, see, I'm generalizing again, I shouldn't do that, but multiple large corporations that have, that like you said, Josh, take advantage of all of these undocumented people would instantly fall apart because they're able to get cheap labor that is outside the system and they don't have to follow the rules that everyone else has to follow.
Right. There's no taxes on those individuals. There's no employee requirements other than, hey, here's an under the table thing. I'm going to pay you,
probably
pennies on the dollar.
Well, and who
for
suffers,
you to do the same thing that
suffers,
Josh is doing over here for $8 an hour.
You know who suffers the most too? Is the undocumented workers.
Yep.
Because
that's
they
who
have to
suffers
work.
the most. The people that one side is saying they're taking our jobs, which is incorrect. There's no one there that wants to work those jobs. And the people that the other side is saying, well, we have to have compassion on these people. We have to let them into our country. Neither side is either unable to or unwilling to look at that situation and accept the fact that the only one that is suffering or is suffering the vast majority of harm in that system is the people that are being exploited by the system, the undocumented workers.
They make bad arguments on purpose.
On purpose.
So that they can perpetuate the problem and continue to get people to vote one way or the other.
Why do you think the border is a subject of every single presidential race?
Yeah.
Every single presidential debate.
Same with abortion. Like the abortion debate, if we just did it based on DNA and court precedent, we could end the abortion debate tomorrow. No one, half the country wouldn't be happy with the outcome, but we could come to a quick conclusion on the topic forever if we just referred to precedent as to how DNA is used in courts, civil and criminal. And the doctrine of stare decisis or precedent is fundamental to our system of law. If you got rid of stare decisis,
it's what every legal system is based on.
So when they do that, it would be DNA based rather than
and basically the argument would be, and if the Republicans really wanted to win the debate, they could win it very quickly, because how could you push back against precedent that goes? We've been using DNA evidence to establish the existence of a human being and paternity for decades. There's thousands and thousands of precedent, criminal and civil, where DNA has been used. So they could end that debate tomorrow, but instead they make the Jesus argument, knowing that our system will never accept the Jesus argument as a valid argument, saying
it's just another pit point to turn us on each other. It's just another argument point where it's
bad
more
legal
division.
argument.
It's just to breed more division, because now we're divided by
and that's what
race,
it comes
gender,
down to at
sex,
the end
religion.
Of the day. There are forces at work that benefit off of all the division on any political issue, but especially issues like abortion, like the border, like these hot topic issues that are always the subject of conversation every election year.
And with bad arguments on both sides, and that's what bothers me is, if they really cared about the issue, they could end the issue. They could come to a conclusion. But they don't really want that, because people barely vote for Republicans now, and most of their voting base is voting out of fear that abortion will get worse and not be reduced. So if you got rid of the abortion argument, if the Republicans could no longer be claimed to be pro-life, if it was exposed that their arguments were intentionally invalid so that they could perpetuate, then people would stop voting Republican.
Can I just say how frustrated I am too, looking at the mental health care apparatus, seeing that we have people that are, anti-fascist and then, pro free choice, but we have bipartisan people supporting what I think is eugenics. medicine being conducted, and I just how mind-numbingly frustrating that is to watch.
And you can't even make you can't bring these points up without the people that support abortion automatically trying to lump you in with the typical group of anti-abortion.
Right.
Like what you're saying is that Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist. She was.
Right.
She was connected to eugenicists. There's no doubt that if you look at interviews, she's making the argument that we have too many people.
Right.
She's specifically saying there are too many black people. Right. So not only was it eugenicist in theory, it was eugenicist in that it was scientific racism being applied through eugenics, and it's still going on today.
Yeah.
Which is Kanye's whole push too.
Kanye was saying that, right?
He literally wears a badge on his.
Yeah.
That's a picture of an ultrasound.
Well, and I don't even I'm not even making the argument against abortion. I'm not making the argument for abortion. I'm just looking at the situation and saying, this is not a hard argument to win. If you were pro-life,
If you wanted to win.
if you wanted to win it, you could end the debate because you could challenge stare decisis, end of debate. Because you can't challenge stare decisis. The whole legal system collapses. So you would have to assume that the fact that they keep allowing this highly emotional religious argument to be their main argument on a national level, come on. These people don't care about Jesus. These are the people who got us into endless war. Let's not forget the Republicans are very pro-war historically. So to think that they care about life, like that's what's keeping them up at night because of Jesus, that is obviously not the case. But if you are a true believer, it's very easy to hear what you want to hear and say yes, no matter what else they do, even if they increase taxes, even if they send us to war, at least we're not killing babies, right? So from their perspective, that's what they want to hear. They hear it, and then they go to the voting booth, and they vote the lesser evil for the greater good over and over and over again. And that's exactly why they allow that bad argument. They do the same thing, like you say, with the immigration. They make bad arguments, perpetuate the problem.
That the founding fathers were really looking towards the future, saying, "Hey, I want you guys to vote on the lesser of the two evils in this two-party system."
Right.
They wanted us to vote for what was the best for our country,
our conscience. They wanted our conscience to be our guide.
Well, and now it's just this whole, like, I agree with one thing that this guy says, so I'm going to vote for him, and I don't really agree with anything this other guy says. You're voting on the idea that, like, well, even with like the people who run for president that you don't hear about, the ones who get pushed out early on, you know, people don't vote for them even though they agree with more of their stance because they're like, well, my vote's not going to matter then.
Right.
And we live in that mindset thinking like, and nothing's going to change because that's constantly what it is, because the Republicans, the Democrats get more money to push their agenda than these people that are actually like, no, this is wrong. Let's find the common ground.
I had this conversation the other day with someone, and what they said is zealots don't get things done. The only thing that they accomplish, zealots don't breed cooperation. They breed war. They breed civil war, whether it be political zealots, religious zealots. It doesn't help anyone to intentionally and deliberately divide our society in order to further your religious or political zealotry. And yet, right now in our country, it feels like we have a whole lot of zealots and zero interest in cooperating with each other to solve anything.
No, it's always he's the worst part of this and they're the best part and vice versa. It's never a let's come together and solve an issue that's actually matters.
Right.
Right?
Well,
like there are issues that are on the docket, you know, that they're supposed to be trying to solve that I feel like are a lot more important than a lot of the things that they're constantly arguing over. You know, and I'm not saying that the abortion thing's not important. That's not
Sure.
what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like other things that we're arguing about that actually are like stuff that we should just not even be fighting over, that don't even matter. You know, there shouldn't be this huge push to put certain things in the schools. Schools
That's
should
the
be
truth.
about math, reading, literature, literatures and history, like what the core principles of what school was created for, and then they should move on and they can go home and figure out the rest of that with their folks. And if they don't have that at home, that's something that they got to go out and find in these other organizations that were created to teach them about those things.
Well, why is it, if the school system has gotten better, why is it that my grandfather's math book from middle school, when I looked at it, it was foreign to me? Like he still had his little math book, and it was just like that big, and it was like college level math that he was learning in middle school. So what we've done is we have allowed the standard to drop lower and lower and lower through public education. And a lot of people don't realize compulsory public education is one of the planks of the Marxist Communist Manifesto.
Forgot the 4th and 5th C's, Common Core. Thank you, Josh. You got them for me.
I'm not too worried about Common Core, but compulsory school, it's just like anything that the government tries to do. They're going to end up doing it. They're going to tell you how great they're doing it while they do it at less and less well over time. So you look at the school system, and then what happens, you criticize the school system while all the teachers and the unions act like you insulted them directly. I think most of our teachers are great, right? I don't have a problem with the teachers. I have a problem with the curriculum, and I have a problem with all these standardized tests. They spend an enormous amount of time preparing for these tests that will allow them to get funding. Well, the tests steer the big picture away from the things that would make these kids better citizens and better human beings, and they steer them towards what will make them better employees for corporations. And so as long as that federal influence is coming into our school system, it's going to continue to get worse and worse in that way.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and one of my, talking about the cyberpunk dystopia, one of the things I've been talking about too, we're talking about early prevention, in schools, and it's like, great. I love that we're talking about mental health in schools and early prevention. Who is teaching what mental illness looks like? Because if it's the people that are making psychotropic drugs, then we have a serious conflict of interest in education, because you've got this DSM-centric approach that I can't think of any service provider who doesn't use the DSM as a center of of how they diagnose and talk about people and their disorders and excuse their behavior.
But it's altered every few years to fix
but
whatever's
it's this moving
next.
thing, and it's like, okay, love early prevention, but is it going to be like your war education brought to you by weapons manufacturer, your mental health education brought to you by your pharmaceutical manufacturer?
I have a very clear analogy
sponsored
for
by-
this, Kurt. When we were in DC, I went to the Museum of Natural History. In the
Okay.
Museum of Natural History, there is a bug and invertebrates section. And you walk into the bug and invertebrates section, and it says, brought to you by, won't name names, a pest removal company. You walk 2 steps inside the bug and invertebrates section. There's this huge display of a house. I'm like, what's this all about? And there's 8 different buttons. And you click a button, it has a picture of a bug on it, and then a different part of the house lights up. And the part of the house that lights up is the little information plaque will tell you, this is where this bug is commonly found inside your own house. And I went, I wonder why a pest removal company is sponsoring a wing that has a display 2 feet inside the door that tells me exactly where all these bugs are inside my house.
Who has the most to gain?
That's so great that they're telling me that. I feel so informed.
Who has the most to gain by these things? Who has the most to gain?
Yeah,
The pest removal
the pest
company.
removal company. Yes.
So who has the most to gain in getting that huge push?
Pfizer.
Well,
we have covered so much ground today, and we're definitely going to end up splitting this up, which is good. I think that was the goal.
I don't think that people are going to be able to bite off what we're talking about. We're going to probably get some emails.
Oh, gosh.
Good.
Please don't
Yeah.
email me.
Isaac's email is...
Isaac at myhousematsu.org is what it is.
If you have some complaints, we'll make fun of them on the show next time.
I think it would be good to, we've gotten really hot and heavy into a lot of these topics, and we had a break from the nihilism, which I was glad for about half an hour ago. But maybe we could wrap up with just where do we go from here? Because I think a lot of what we're saying is valid, and we should be talking about it, and we should be thinking about it. But now that we know all of this, we know what our society is like. Where do we go from here?
Josh Fryfogle 2024.
No. I'm voting for Kanye.
Yeah, me
I don't.
too.
I would never.
Voting for
Dwayne The Rock
Never go
Johnson
against Kanye.
and Kanye. Kevin Hart
No,
and
thank
Dwayne
you.
The Rock Johnson for president.
Hart Johnson for president. I don't know how much they would get done, but they
It
might win.
Sure would be funny.
But they might win.
They would win because of name
No.
recognition.
They would legitimately. They would.
You were getting back into the nihilism.
Well, I think if you're trying to think of what we can do something locally, do something real that connects with a real human being, do something good for someone. I think the power of doing something good for someone is a lot more powerful than anything a politician's going to do in Juneau.
Yep.
And if you do go to Juneau, you gotta get felt up by the federal government on the way there anyway, right? So. Who really even wants to go to Juneau?
Well, none of us. We're not going to be able to fly anymore, Josh.
Actually, I might have a show in Juneau in February.
Well, not anymore.
but-
You don't, unless you're taking a boat.
Look, dude. This is. I'm going to Juneau.
Okay. I'm not releasing this then, I guess.
Awkward. Just wait till I get back.
Okay, gotcha. We'll bank this one. No, I like that, Josh. I feel like it's said a lot. Local politics is always more important than national politics, and I think what's more important than local politics and local policy is local connection with our community.
Real
So
connection.
maybe that's the most important C out of all the C's that we've talked about
Connection.
today. Community.
Yes.
The letter of the day.
C.
That's what this podcast is going to be called.
There we go.
Thank you guys for tuning into Diagnonsense. I'm your host, Justin Pendergrass. I'm here with Kurt Honak. Any final thoughts, Kurt?
I just think, I like grassroots. I like decentralized. I like, are investing in our young people, that they're the future. And the small stuff matters, the small connections and the personal connections. I know there's a way, because I survived 16 years of drugs, and you try different stuff until something sticks or something works, and you just got to that's how you keep hope alive, I think.
Yeah. Make sure you guys are following our My House page where we drop these podcasts. If you have friends that you'd like to get mad at us along the way,
Oh, this would
please
be a
do point
great
them
one
towards
to
this
share, wouldn't
episode.
it?
We
Yeah.
would be happy to laugh about their comments on the next episode.
I wouldn't laugh at their comments if
I
they
would.
were if it was developing the conversation. If it was for I just want us to be able to talk. That's the only way we get things done.
Actually, if you'd like
Send
to be
us
a
your
guest and tell us why Josh Fryfogle and us are wrong,
I'll get
Please.
please call us.
fifth mic in here, and
There
we
we
can.
go.
We're just our next episode with Josh is just going to be a line out the door of people coming in to tell us about how wrong we all are. That'd be a fun episode.
No, they'll just come in and tell me that I shouldn't be here.
Oh, that's true.
Yes.
That's how it works.
Right.
That's your favorite.
You're part of the problem.
Yeah.
Kurt, can you
Also-
say "wake up, sheeple" one more time for me?
Wake up, sheeple.
Well,
That sounded
There we
AI generated. Hold on.
I replaced Kurt.
Say it like
Plot
Alex
twist,
Jones.
I replaced Kurt with an AI generated Kurt halfway
Plot-
through the show, and you didn't even notice.
Plot
well,
twist.
speaking of
the
AI
problem.
generated, I have a song dropping on the 28th.
Oh, I was gonna fade
so
us out before you got there. but
Definitely
maybe I'll
check
leave
it
that
out.
in.
Follow Nuisance Music Ministries.
I'm
If
gonna
you'd
cut that.
like
out. I don't
to.
want anyone following you.
No, they're gonna follow.
Okay.
And by new sense, it's N-E-W.
Yep, a new way of thinking.
Not
new
nuisance.
sense.
Ooh.
New
Justin,
sense.
can you say "wake up, sheeple"?
Wake up, sheeple.
Yeah.
Wake up, sheeple. Say the emphasis has got to be on the sheeple.